The first thing I'd like to do is welcome everybody to meeting number 9 of the Ad Hoc Committee on Police Policy. I want to welcome our committee members who have been working hard and spending a considerable amount of time on this important topic. I'd also like to welcome our invited speakers this evening. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to provide testimony for the committee later on in the meeting. Also, a thank you to the attendees, which include many of our city elected officials and city personnel and members of the public. So thank you for tuning in. My name is Kevin Altucker. I'm the lead staff for the Ad Hoc Committee, and I am very ably assisted this evening by Naya Ross and Jeremy Cleversey, who are kind of working the back room levers of the Zoom room. So thank you very much to Naya and Jeremy. I'm also ably assisted by our facilitator, Mo Young. So thank you, Mo, for your work throughout this process. Very much appreciated. We normally have our colleague Kaz assisting us during these meetings, but Kaz is attending to a family emergency and will not be able to be with us tonight. So we're a little bit shorthanded, and I ask for your patience as we try to manage that situation. We have 3 remaining meetings of the Ad Hoc Committee until the deadline of March 31st. So we have a meeting on March 2nd, we have a meeting on March 17th, and we have a meeting on March 31st. So really, we only have 2 kind of business meetings because the last meeting on the 31st will be dedicated to reviewing and approving the report that will be going to council. So the time clock has become a real factor here. And it's hard to believe that we're reaching the end of this process, of this particular process. Of course, the recommendations that this committee will put forward to the council, hopefully, will take on a life, and the discussions will continue after the Ad Hoc Committee. Just a quick reminder that our work plan that was revised so that we concentrated on the 5 highest priority topics that you have chosen. We're taking a deep dive into those topics. The remaining topics equally as important, but we're not going to be able to spend a lot of committee time on those topics. So you might remember during our last meeting, Kaz asked that you take a look.
Age-related macular degeneration may lead.
Kaz asked committee members to take a look at those remaining topics, and if there is a particular recommendation that you feel strongly about, please email myself or Kaz. We will make sure that it gets included in our final report. I would like to let you know that the first meeting of the Independent Investigation and Prosecution Subcommittee will be taking place tomorrow night. So I will be seeing a handful of you tomorrow night again for that subcommittee meeting. We've got the second subcommittee meeting of the body-worn cameras subcommittee on Monday, the 22nd. So we have a busy few days for the Ad Hoc Committee and subcommittees. We are attempting to schedule the remaining subcommittee meetings for hiring and training, and also the second Independent Investigation and Prosecution Subcommittee meeting. Jason Mack, who was a committee member, let me know yesterday that he has resigned from the Ad Hoc Committee effective immediately, and we will miss him. He was had his shoulder into the wheel on this process. And finally, the bulk of this meeting tonight is dedicated to receiving testimony from community members who have experience with the police auditor and or the civilian review board. You might recall that this committee approved a motion back in November 4th, which seems like a heck of a long time ago. And the motion was very, very precisely worded in that it asked for testimony from folks who had experiences with the police auditor and or the civilian review board. The facilitation team has received feedback here recently that there may be a desire to expand the scope of that motion a little bit to allow some other types of experiences to be provided to the committee tonight. Now, if that is the committee's desire, then I'm going to suggest that it would be proper to have a motion proposed at this particular time that would allow for that gently expanded scope of testimony. If we don't do that, then we're really not honoring the wishes of the ad hoc committee as the motion was specifically written. So if there...
That was a lot to unpack. Can you please be more clear?
Oh, sure, Silverio. The motion that this committee passed in November was very specifically worded, and it said, we want to hear from folks who have experiences specifically with a police auditor and or the civilian review board. Since that motion was passed, we've received feedback that maybe there's a desire to gently expand the scope of that motion. Does that help you? Okay. If
it does.
Excuse me, Kevin, can you I had the impression that the oversight community committee wanted to have testimonies in order to facilitate the discussion of that committee about some motions they wanted to propose and some changes to those agencies, specifically the Civil Review Board and the auditors agency. So why is not linked anymore to that? And the testimony seems out of place if it's not linked to the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, I believe we are saying the same thing. So what I'm suggesting at this point, that if it is the desire of this committee to expand the scope of that testimony that you're looking for, that now would be the time to do that. And Ibrahim, I see your hand up, so go ahead.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you all. I think we wanted to amend the motion to just allow Marian Duggan to be able to testify before us. Marian Duggan is an attorney in Eugene here. She has the experience of, calling for cahoots, but Eugene police showed up and her nephew got arrested. So that motion will only allow her and only her, because she's the one actually that we her name we put forward to Kevin to have her address this committee and share her experience with us. And it's very telling on how the police deal with mental illness, and also how when people call often, like Eric and Aisha will testify later on, when people call for cahoots and they get the police, and how those things usually go. So because she didn't go through the CRB and police auditor, and because the way the motion is, she is not qualified to share her experience with us. So what we are asking is to allow Marianne Duggan to be able to share her experience calling for Kahoot for her nephew and getting Eugene Police and how it went. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I'm typing what I think I just heard in the chat box.
I would second that motion.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, what I have typed, and Ibrahim, let me know if this captures your intent. Move to allow Marianne Dugan to provide testimony this evening regarding her experience with calling for Kahoots.
That's my intent.
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there a discussion?
So I want to know how it would apply to the main focus of this group being we're looking at police procedures and policies that have impacted Black, Indigenous people of color in the community.
And I can
All right.
answer to that. May
So
I?
Silverio has asked the question.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Ibrahim.
Yes. So her nephew is a Black person. She is a person of color. But I think it's gonna be also very important for us to know that a lot of people do not approach the CRB or the city auditor office and for multiple reasons. But and when we restrict ourselves to people who have taken that step to file a complaint with CRB, we are missing the part of the population, the part of the who I would call victims, who do not approach the civilian review board. So it's very important. Maybe during the question we can ask Marianne Duggan, who is very aware of what the city offered, why she did not file a complaint with the police auditor. I think that would maybe give us an angle into why people usually do not approach those structures that the city put together. And I personally have supported, and she is one of the NACP
Thank you, Ibrahim.
person
Any
that
other
was
comments or
put
questions?
forward to come address this committee, but I have not checked with people to see what they're going to talk about. That's why I'm kind of a little reserved. But I think in the question we can clarify that.
Other comments or questions? Ib.
Excuse me, my question, can you answer me?
Patricia, just one moment, if you would. We're going to let Ib speak here.
Just a clarifying question. Are we including EPD in the testimonial? Are we allowing testimonies to speak to police, to EPD as well as a police auditor and the CRB? Is that part of the motion, or am I missing something?
If you're talking about my motion, may I? If you're talking about
Please.
my motion, I'm not aware of anybody that EPD or the CRB put forward. I have something on my screen. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I'm not sure what just happened there.
Wow.
There we go. We're back.
So I'm not aware of EPD or the CRB or the police auditor office putting forward a name or someone to come here to testify. So what I'm speaking on is Marian Duggan, that I know that in ACP, we want her to address this committee. So I'm not aware of anything else.
Hey, Ibrahim, if you could scoot a little bit closer to your microphone, I think we could hear you better.
Okay, sound check.
That's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've had some questions, discussion. We have a motion with a second. Is there further discussion? All right, let me read it to you again. Oh, wait, Patricia, I'm sorry. You had something to say.
I ask you, will you please talk to us, why are the testimonies for? Why did we decide this? As far as I understood, it was part of the oversight community that decided to have testimonies, and especially about the civil review board and the auditor's office competencies and complaints, basically, about their functions. So is my point here, you explain us why are we having these testimonies at this moment, and how are they going to impact the future, the next couple of sessions? Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. I'll be very brief. On November 4th, the ad hoc committee as a whole approved a motion to receive testimony in February that was from folks who had experience with the police auditor and or the civilian review board. There's been a desire tonight to expand that slightly to allow Marianne Dugan to provide testimony. She does not have direct experience with the police auditor or the civilian review board, but she does have experiences that the committee believes will be relevant and helpful moving forward. I hope that answers your question.
And if I may add, Marianne Dugan is going to speak. I'm sorry for saying that her nephew is a person of color, but it is the overall problem of calling for Kahoot when you may be Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, and call for Kahoot and get Eugene Police to show up, and the way that goes down usually is, you know, they end up getting beat up and taken to jail. So Marianne, thank you for your clarification. She will be speaking on calling for Kahoot and getting the police, how her family and herself experience ease with EPD.
Friends,
Thank you.
I'm taking the reins from you, Kevin.
Yep.
We're gonna vote now. There's a motion and a second. I'm just gonna run through the list and vote. I'm gonna start at the bottom of the list. Marty?
Yes, my understanding is that we wanted to hear from people who had issues with the police.
Yeah.
And the auditor and the CRB come after that. The first issue is people who have issues with the police.
Yep. Midas?
Yes.
Patricia? Patricia?
Yes.
Thank you. Sandra? I saw you typed in the chat that you also would like to hear from her, Sandra. So I'm
Yes.
perfect. Thank you. Leticia? Leticia,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. David,
Yes.
Rick, Rosetta,
Yes.
Quentin, Quentin. I can't hear you, my friend, but I can see you. Quentin, okay. I don't think Marvin is here. Guadalupe,
Yes.
Anna,
Yes.
Silver,
No.
Ryan,
Yes.
You want this one?
I don't think Justin is here. Oh, Justin's here. Justin,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes.
Hey, Mo, I just joined. I'm back in now, just in case.
awesome. Well, you were next. So would you like to vote yes or no?
You know, I was kicked out, and so I don't know what I'd be voting on.
We're
So I-
voting on hearing Mary Ann Dugan's testimony about her experience calling cahoots and hearing from
EPD. Okay. All right. Yeah, I vote yes.
Okay. Lindsay,
Yes.
Abdul Rahman,
Yes.
Leah,
Yes.
Ibrahim,
Yes.
Macy,
Yes.
Betsy,
Yes.
Daniel,
Yes.
Ems,
Yes.
and Quentin. I see your hand up. Did we figure our audio out?
Excuse me, Mo, this is Rick Hamilton.
It says,
Quentin's not-
Susan Reynolds on your thing.
Yeah, I know, because I never got an invitation, and he had forwarded me a copy of his because I was no longer had access to my work laptop, which I get all of my email on. And so I'm not sure why he's not here, but I just utilized this to get on to the ad hoc. I
All right,
did
well, we got you.
request a copy, but I never got it. So
Sorry, we got you and we got your name changed on your thing. My screen's real small, so I'm on my phone. I'm sorry. How would you like to vote?
you know, I came in on part of this, so I'm good.
All right, we got you down for abstention.
Mo, that's 21 yes, 1 no, 1 abstention, so that motion carries.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. That took longer than I think any of us thought that it would, and I apologize. We're gonna move right into testimony from citizen complainants. I have 4 sentences that I want to read to you all, and then just a little description of how we're gonna do it, and then I'm gonna just turn my camera off and pass the mic. I want to take a moment to thank the community members who are here to talk about their experiences. I want to acknowledge the bravery that it takes for a person who was caused harm by a system to come in and speak their truth to people that hold power inside that system. I want to say that while I know the stories that we will hear tonight will be hard to listen to, I'm certain that they were incredibly hard to experience. And I want you all to know that I appreciate your willingness to come here and relive these traumatic moments in your life in the hope that it will help to move this system closer to justice. We have 5 people signed up to talk. We'll go in alphabetical order by first name. We've allotted about 20 minutes per person, although we're running kind of low on time. But if you want your 20 minutes, you'll get it. You'll have a chance to make your testimony without interruption, and then there'll be time for questions, and all of that needs to fit within that 20 minutes. So be sure to leave about 5 minutes at the end for committee members to ask questions. And Kevin is going to be our timekeeper, and he'll let you know when you've got about 7 minutes left so that you can wrap it up. and still have time for questions. Committee members, we should have time for 2 or 3 questions per speaker. I'm not going to allow for more than 1 follow-up question from each of you, and I'm going to prioritize calling on people who haven't had a chance to ask a question yet, as well as people that have been quiet in previous meetings when I call on people. So if you're wondering why I'm operating that way, that hopefully will explain it. And as I said, we're going to go in alphabetical order by first name. So Aisha Elliott, you are up.
Hi.
Oh no, you were unmuted and now you're.
Yeah, it
you-
bounced back. Okay, I got it now. Okay, so I think my brother who is here, and I'm sure you guys are more familiar with him than me, Eric, was going to come in our time together and start it off. And then I've tried to condense my experience into some bullet points so I don't take up too much time. And I also with the solutions that I wanted to give. Again, so I'll try to keep this as brief as possible. So Eric, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Aisha, and thank you all for inviting Aisha to come. And just so you know, I'm here on behalf of my sister. Aisha is my younger sister. I have 5 siblings, and she is one of my 2 younger sisters who I care about deeply. And she herself has 3 beautiful children who I care deeply about and who are raised in our community and who are wholesome, good people. And Quentin, my nephew, is one of the best, kindest brothers that you will know. And of no fault of his, playing basketball at South Eugene High School. Good kid. It's a train, hits his head, has a concussion, has ramifications on how he is doing with his mental health because of a traumatic brain situation that happened in high school sports, one of our kids. And then I get a call from my sister that he is having an issue with his traumatic brain issue and that he's going through, and that is known, and he's being treated, and we are trying to deal with this as a family. And I am told that he's having an issue, and she is called Cahoots, please come over. We do that. We're there for one another, as we expect our institutions to be there for us as well. And so I came over, and I was confronted with the scene that is most likely, unfortunately, typical of ill-advised policy that uses violence as a threat, the threat or use of violence as a tool to do the work of peace officers. So I witnessed something in 2015 after Trayvon Martin in Eugene, where I feared for my family's life. And I just want you all to know that it was a serious thing. I don't come in here trying to point fingers, but when the evidence is clear and the tactics are harmful and ill-advised for any reasonable person, then someone needs to say something about that. Because we spend a lot of money on our institutions in the United States of America, on our police officers. We spend a lot of tax money, and we expect professional, well-informed, well-advised tactics when people interact with our community members and the people we love. And so this might be in someone's textbook, but that textbook needs to be re-examined as we go forward. Because having the good cop and having a bad cop is not the way we need to have two good cops, two well-informed cops, two cops with empathy and understanding for different types of situations, and who do not, as 50% of their tactics say, a weapon is 50% in all circumstances, no matter what. That's not true. And so I just want professionalism. I want responsiveness to the need in our community, from young brothers who are playing basketball for the high school team, to have some compassion. Don't be afraid of a tall Black young man because he's handsome, tall, and talented, and has a brain injury because he was handsome, tall, and talented and playing on the local high school team. That makes him a threat. There's something that we have to think about. And it's not anyone's particular problem. It's all of our problems. And it's a society, it's a national narrative, it's a global narrative. Anyway, I will stop and give it over to my sister, who experienced firsthand being someone who called earnestly for help and was met with ill-advised tactics.
Point of clarification here. It was my understanding that Eric time was not coming out of Aisha time.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
okay.
correct.
We talked about
That's
it.
correct.
No,
We talked about it. It's fine.
Because I want Eric to have his time, and I want.
Ibrahim, he'll have his time.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah,
Eric.
yeah.
So you have the rest of your time to use.
Okay, but we're cutting into Aisha's time, so let's let her talk.
Yeah, this is Aissa's time, and I would humbly request that I have no more time. I have said what I want to say. Then people can contact me. The NAACP offices are open. We are a concerned organization, and we represent concerned citizens. And so I just want to give the time to my sister.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Eve. Thank you, Eric, of course. I want to start off with the situation because I did try to, I heard the request for time limits and I tried to condense this, and Eric did such a wonderful job of painting the picture. I want to go back for a moment so that you can understand that what I feel is the difference in this, because obviously all the panelists here we all have the same story, technically. But I'd like to say, when this happened to my son and the police came to my door, I actually called for cahoots. And when I say called for cahoots, I called the non-emergency number. There was no 911 dialed. It was late night, but I called the non-emergency number. When I did call a non-emergency number, and what I want to say, and I want to paint a picture for you about what the police officers saw when we came out the door. Because when people talk about mental health, you think of this scenario that's out of control and unwielding and all of these things that they would like to paint, this idea that this could not have gone any other way, which is false. So I want to first say that I am a medical professional. I have worked in the healthcare system, not that I'm working there now, but I've worked in the healthcare system for 12 years. The first thing that I had decided to do when I was going to approach the police is give them the scenario so that they could best understand what they were going to get when my son came out the door. That's what you do. You do an assessment. You give a vitals. You give the way that the patient looks and sounds and does, and then you go in. So I did that. I came out, left my son inside the house. I came outside when the police came out, and I gave them a description of what was going on. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't yelling. I walked outside, closed the door, and I described my son's condition. I told him about the high school game. I told him about his head injury. I told him how long we had been in the house. I told him what he was complaining about. I told them that I was having a hard time to get him into the car because he wasn't convinced. I also told them that he played basketball and how that he was my son at 19 years old. And so when I told him he played football and basketball and who he was with the school, you need to keep that in mind when I go through my bullet points, because I told them he was a basketball player and a football player for South Eugene High School. He's 19. Don't know what they pictured when I told them that, but all of you guys know he's a senior on varsity basketball and football team. Just keep that in mind. I also want to say, because of the level of me trying to get the information across to the police officers in a calm manner, it was due to tact. I knew what we were dealing with. I knew what needed to happen so that they could clearly hear the situation. That was intentional. I also, at the time, worked for the government, worked for the state of Oregon, work with police officers all the time, work with child welfare, work with self-sufficiency. Me being able to understand how they needed to hear the information was not lost on me. I utilized all of my tools in order to get the subject matter across to them. I want to make that very clear. I was outside with the police officers enough time to discuss all of this with them. I gave them the stats. And then I told them, I'm going to go get my son. So they were ready. They were ready. My son came outside. He stood behind me. He talked to the officer in front of me, which was a very nice officer. And as soon as my son stepped 1 foot outside the door, the racist officer that was just about 5 feet, maybe 6 feet away, immediately grabbed for his taser, held onto it, and screamed, no joke, "Don't take another step towards us. Stay right there. Stay, no more, no." What did he say? "Do not move. Do not move." Remember, my son is in a state, he's having a discussion with the peaceful officer. As soon as he stepped outside, the other officer feared for his life. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. I called the non-emergency number. I gave them a very concise, a very clear picture of the situation. I allowed them time to prepare themselves as I went and got my son and we came out. It wasn't 10 seconds before the racist officer escalated the situation with his approach to my son. At some point during the evening there, we were all standing on the porch. And I asked the officer, "When is Cahoots coming?" Because I didn't call them. I said, "When is Cahoots coming?" An officer responded to me, "They're on their way." That wasn't true. There was never a time that they were on their way. Okay, at some point in that time, they called a code 3. My brother was there. I was there. My son was there. He never even raised his hands above his head, not once. Matter of fact, within the first few minutes of him being on the porch, the peaceful officer was able to have his hand on Quentin's arm and slide his hands down his arm and handcuff him, because I guess that's procedure to walk someone somewhere. He had to be handcuffed. In that time that he was handcuffed was within the first 3 to 5 minutes that we were on the porch. So the whole time that we were on the porch, that the police felt threatened, my son was handcuffed. His hands never came above his hands. I was standing next to him the entire time. So I just want you to picture what's going on. Now, after this, once my son got escalated a few times after the racist cop did a couple more actions that escalated the situation, hitting his baton on the ground, making unexpected noises, all of these things that if anyone's worked with mental health patients, you would know to never, ever, ever do. He escalated the situation a few more times. So after my brother was there and he was able to literally talk to Quentin and calm him down verbally without any words. So to speed this up, we went through Stracco's he was violent in his intention. Like I said, when he came out the house, he immediately screamed, yelled, "Back up, don't move, I'll tase you," all of these different things. Matter of fact, at that point, I told him, "If you have a gun or a taser, to get off of my property. I didn't call you here for this." I'm quoted by saying that. I absolutely said that to the police officer. So at that point, after the officer was introduced to the situation, his condition, the officer's condition, his demeanor, upon viewing my son, became violent, like I just explained to you. Now, my son is 6'1". At the time, he weighed 217 pounds. If you look at the report, the cops, I think, described him as 6'4", maybe 280 or something like that. Massively exaggerated his size and his weight. Through the fear, I assume he saw this big black man. I don't know. But I keep saying that, and I don't want you to believe that this is what I am putting to the picture. At the end of this conversation, I will show you how the cops actually stated back to me, what else are we supposed to do? Your son is so huge. That's what was said to me. That's in the paperwork. Okay, so we're gonna go back. And so at that point, things have happened. I was beat up. Quentin was beat up and arrested. They would not allow me to know where he went. They didn't tell me where they were taking him. I asked, since I was going to jail, I didn't know where they were going to take my son. I just got beat up for calling for help. So I didn't know if my son would make it to the hospital, to be very honest. I didn't know if they would kill him and dump him. I would never know. I had no recollection to what was going to happen next. Everything had went so wrong. How could I have trusted that they were going to keep my son safe? I had no idea, and no one would tell me where they were taking them. At the point where we got to where I would be meeting the auditor, they made an appointment with me and my lawyer, and I was so concussed. I had such a horrible concussion from the officer beating my head into the ground 3 separate times that I remember it vaguely, and I remember conversations that we had. I was pushed quite a bit by the urgency of the situation. And my son, at that point, I had found out what they had done to him and where he was. And it was very unusual for everything that had been going on, and even his reaction to it. So I spoke with the auditor, and the auditor, what was really upsetting to me is the police auditor stated to me in no uncertain terms that he was in agreement that there was excessive force, and that his research or his investigation had found that there was absolutely excessive force. Nothing came of that. That meant nothing at my court.
I want to give you a 5 minutes heads up, Aisha.
Thank you. So nothing happened with that. The second thing was the CRB. Now, the CRB, there was people that I know that I will not say, and I will not quote who it was. I mean, I'm sorry, I will not say who it was, but they were on record saying that they were justified in beating my son because the size of that he was, because he was a quote unquote, the man was such a huge black man. Okay, I want to put that out there. So when I was there at the civilian review board, I was told that I could talk, although the truth of it was that they had decided that they weren't going to hear what I really had to say, and they weren't going to be recording it or doing anything with it. But they allowed me to come in and tell my story, which is super inappropriate, painful, and a waste of my time. I came in, told my story. They said out of courtesy, but were completely and totally, absolutely not going to do anything with it. That transparency was not there, and it was traumatizing and harmful. So that's my experience. I don't know if within this 5 minutes I have to give my solutions as well, so I'm about to run through it real quick. Okay, so the solutions that I thought was obviously, and I think probably a lot of people will say, can we not have a line that goes from people that are requesting cahoots go to the police? That's one. Two, I think that needs to be in best practices to understand that the families with people with mental health know how to treat the people that they have in their family with mental health, and they need to be heard and respected for the instructions that they give. It's not about procedure. They know what to do with their family members. Listen to them. That's two. Hiring practices. Cahoots being the entity that responds to mental health issues. I would think allowing them to decide whether or not police are necessary would be a good thing. That's number three. Like, they get to decide if they need to decide if police should be there. They know what to do, even if he's unwilling, they know what to do with him better than a police officer would. The other things I'd like to go deeper into is the hiring practices. I think that we should absolutely eliminate soldiers who have not gone through extensive PTSD training and therapy. If they haven't been through extensive PTSD therapy, I don't care what kind of soldier you are, I don't think they should be hired as a police officer. To at least an associate's degree. I know you can take college credits, and that's a thing, but they don't have to have a degree. I think they should have at least an associate's degree in a related field that has to do with people, caring with people. Increase the time of experience with the public, requiring at least 3 years. In order to be a police officer in Eugene, you need a minimum of 1. That's ridiculous. 6 months to a year with mentally disabled people or mentally challenged people or disabled people, period, to have that type of experience be part of their requirement. If they don't have that requirement, that they then are required to spend time with Cahoots and learn that at least 40 hours before 40 hours, requiring 40 hours of ride along. I also think requiring sensitivity, mental health, cultural training every 6 months for the entire department would be nice. Therapy required and provided for each loss or excessive force or bodily harm claim that the police officer does, that is incited to. They have to go to therapy. They have to talk about why their approach was necessary to do that, where their inner self was when they decided to take down a mother protecting their son. And I think that should be with that force, with no less than 20 hours within the 3 months, the time that they created the crime. So those are the
One
things
more
that I
minute
came up
until
with.
questions.
Awesome. Those are the things I came up with as quickly as I could to make it happen. And those are my suggestions. I talk fast, so I hope you guys were writing fast, and thank goodness it's recorded. So, okay, I'm ready for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Aisha. And if you feel so inclined, if you could like email that list or take a picture and just like send it, your photo of it, that would be awesome.
Okay, I can do that.
Cool. Thank you.
Any questions?
I'm looking to see if folks are raising their hands on the participant list and also scrolling back and forth. Looking at
Ibrahim had his hand raised. I accidentally lowered it.
Oh, all right. So Ibrahim and then Patricia.
Thank you, Naya. But there was a hand raised before my hand raised. I don't know if the person gave up or.
I see Brian, Patricia.
Yeah, but there was one. There was only one hand raised before. But I'm gonna go ahead and you know what I want this community to understand. Aisha is my sister, and Eric is the closest African American friend I have since I moved here from Africa. We don't get along often, but we fight a lot, but we understand each other to make things happen. And the big black man myth is like a thing that some people have in mind. It's real. What I want you, Aisha, to speak a little bit on is, do you think, and I know you do, that the size of your son play a role in how Eugene police reacted and how they end up treating him? Do you think that a big black man is seen as a threat to law enforcement? If we consider Michael Brown, and you know, because a lot of conversation went on about his size, and if we consider that you say at the CRB, the size of your son came up. So what can you say about those people feeling threatened by people like Heavy, like myself?
Right. So to keep it as brief as possible, there's so much to say about that. And I just want in that situation to be understood that in this particular situation, I, as the mother concerned about my son being faced with white police officers, knew that one of the first things I should say is that my son is a football player and a basketball player for South Eugene High School. So that to me meant I was signifying to them that this is not a boy who is little. He's a football player. So when I said football player for South Eugene High School, that to me would indicate that he had a stature that was of a 19-year-old black man. I gave them the opportunity to put into their head that they were going to be dealing with someone who wasn't short, 5'3" like me, but that they would see a man come through the door, right? But that this was my son and my loved and my baby. right? So I already knew that the stereotypical idea that him coming through the door big would be an issue. I tried to prepare them. It was on to me to know that they would treat my son differently. And it was emphasized throughout the entire court case and emphasized throughout all the paperwork that they did that my son's size was an issue. And so the fact that he was a tall man, to justify their situation, they exaggerated his height by 4 inches. That tells you each inch how much fear they had in their mind to have to. Matter of fact, the cop that arrested him was taller. So this is what I'm saying. You know, there's lots to do with about white supremacy, racism, and all of this that goes into the mindsets and implicit bias that these police officers carry with them every day. It's a much longer conversation, but of course it played a part. Yes. Do I get time for another question? I love questions. I'll just bring them on.
Yeah, I'm actually just gonna call on one more person. Patricia, you're up.
Thank you. We had last 2 sessions ago, the district attorney with us, right?
Yeah.
And we heard she said some people want to be shot. I mean, I was shocked when she repeatedly said that some people like to be shot. When we were discussing the case of this Latino man who was shot by a police officer. So I have here a mother talking about a situation probably significantly the same like your situation. She was stabbed by her son while she
Patricia,
was
I'm
calling
sorry,
the
but we have
police
about one
on
more
her
minute.
phone. Yes, thank you. So she was afraid to call the police because she knew he was gonna end up in jail. So my question to you is, would you please tell me, you that have been in the health system, what could be definitely a solution for this, for mental health help without have to go through the police?
So I listed in my solutions quite a few about that, meaning that like I think obviously that Cahoots should be we should have a separate number for Cahoots, and that Cahoots should be able to decide whether police officers are necessary or not. That was the one thing, is to let Cahoots be the triage of the situation rather than the person on the line who can't see, know, or has background. The other thing is that I don't think, and I think it's super irresponsible to take the blame off of the officers as if they're not people too. They hide behind this institutional kind of veil of our responsibility goes along with our policy and we're just robots that do this thing. So I really, really, really want to put emphasis on who we are hiring to call the shots in these stressful situations where they can come from a balanced perspective. I mean, I can't say, and I don't want to say in a way that is construed as if I'm not supportive of the police, but mental health for the police officers, evaluating stringently and constantly on a regular basis has to be part of the protocol. I mean, just as respect of their work that they do, all of us as citizens, how in the world can you possibly be balanced after doing that for 40 hours? You're going, or 40 hours a week, and they do it for much more hours. So we have to look at them and say, hey, we know it's not a choice. It's mandatory that you are checked out on a regular basis with a therapist. We need to see those hours. We need to make sure that we're evaluating PTSD at all times, because I'm sorry, if I have someone who perhaps, has some issues with Black people and they come to my Black son and my Black son is not rational, I'm triggering that officer, and I don't need to be dealing with his mental health issues along with my son's mental health issues, along with my safety, right? So it's upon the responsibility of the state to make sure that their officers are healthy as well, right? So I mean,
I'm going to break in here and say that we
Thank
are
you.
out of time.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mo,
Yes.
our next speaker is Marianne.
Okay. Marianne Dugan.
My story will be a little shorter, I think, but I'm an attorney here in town, but I'm speaking from personal experience. This was about 10 years ago, maybe a little more. I have a hard time remembering exactly how long, but I was hoping that things had actually improved, but then learning of the more recent issues like Aisha's really raised my concerns that something needs to be done. So we have excuse me, my husband has a nephew who is schizophrenic, and he was living with us because he had nowhere to live. He was living in our upstairs, our attic basically, and he went off his meds. He would sit on the couch just saying he wanted to join the angels. He stopped taking baths and showers. He stopped eating and drinking. And after a couple of days of that, he was lying on the mattress, just basically catatonic. So we weren't really sure what to do. He didn't have, I don't believe he had insurance because he wasn't yet on SSI. We believed we were calling Cahoots. We didn't have the internet at that time, so I'm thinking it must have been a little more than 15 years ago, but a little more than 10 years ago. We didn't have a way to really quickly find Cahoots number, but I think we called directory assistance or looked in the phone book and thought we were calling Cahoots. And they asked his name, and they said that somebody would come, and the police showed up. 2 police officers, and we said, well, where is Cahoots, and why are you here? And they said, well, he has a warrant for failure to appear in Oregon City on a driving without auto insurance. Like, wow, okay, not a violent man. He's lying here catatonic. I'm still unclear why the police are here. Well, if you want him to get help, you need to let us in. So we let them in. They went upstairs. They were taunting him. They were saying, you're not catatonic, stop faking. They slapped him. They brought out some smelling salts and put it under his nose, and they said, oh, maybe he is catatonic, because he had no reaction. In the meantime, my husband was outside and he saw that Cahoots was there, and he asked them, why aren't you in there helping him? He needs mental health treatment. He needs to be taken somewhere for help. And they said, well, the police would not let us go in there because of the warrant. So they took him away. They arrested him in handcuffs. They carried him away. He wasn't walking. He wasn't able to move on his own. And they, back then the jail did have a mental health unit. He was put in the mental health unit, but he was in jail. And then we learned later that some officer had purported to serve him with a new warrant, with a new notice to appear in court for his failure to appear that nobody ever told us about. And so then he had another failure to appear, and that's just kind of a side issue, but I'm just reading my notes. I think that's really all I have to say. I don't remember the officers' names. We did not go to, I don't think there was a CRB then. I don't think there was a police auditor then, but I'm not sure. But I believe we complained to the police department itself, and nothing came of that. We never were interviewed or anything. So, so that's my story. And like I said, I was hoping it had gotten a little better over time. I really appreciate Cahoots. And I know they're dealing with a lot of issues and they're becoming very well known. I appreciate everything they do, but a separate line where somebody on that line is a mental health person, or at least somebody who works with Cahoots, who then makes the decision like, do we really need the police here? It was astonishing to me that they would send a police officer for this type of event.
Thank you, Marianne. We've got time for questions. I see Ibrahim has his hand up. If anyone else has a question, you could raise your hand also, and we'll pass the mic to Ibrahim.
Right, and to kind of keep us on track, let's go with 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, so it'll be Ibrahim and then Rick.
Thank you, Mo, and thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Marianne, for being here. What do you have? What do you think could be a best way for Eugene Police to be able to handle people with mental illness instead of beating them up and putting them in handcuffs and arresting them?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any expertise in that. I don't handle mental health issues very well when I see it in other folks. I think it takes a very special person to know how to be calm and assess the situation, as Aisha was saying, and make a plan. Like, okay, well, let's check his vitals. Let's, see how he's doing physically and take the story from the family. We told the police, he's off his meds. He was doing okay when he was on his meds, but he won't stay on them. So, take him to the Johnson unit or something. There's so much that the police already have to deal with. It's unclear to me why they would want to be dealing with something like this. So I think that just having Cahoots come in, if there was a concern about safety, which I'm still unclear how that could be, because the guy's catatonic and he doesn't have any criminal history other than this failure to appear on a failure to have auto insurance. It can't always be just a fear approach of anytime we have to respond, somebody might kill us. Well, yeah, I mean, life is dangerous and officers can get hurt, but assess the situation and then let's get this poor guy out of there and into the hospital.
We've got 3 more minutes.
All right, next I've got Rick.
Hi, Marianne, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my only question is, I mean, your incident and the other one so far, from what I understand, is pretty clear to me, but did you feel like the officers' priorities were not very well organized regarding the issue at hand and what they were addressing?
Yeah, I felt like I was so astonished. I barely had time to evaluate what was going on, but it seemed to me that it was a couple of officers who felt like the only tool they had was police officer, law enforcement behavior of, control the suspect, and it's really unclear to me what was going on and why they would taunt somebody who's clearly ill. And and they did not, as far as I could tell, they didn't evaluate what to do. They just kind of barged in and treated him as a criminal because of this failure to appear. And I mean, I laugh when I say that because I just, of all the things you could have in your criminal background, it just seemed like the lowest of the low.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I have Sarah, and if I say your last name wrong, please tell me how to say it. Iannucci.
That was a mistake I don't know who put my name in, but my name is not that name. My name is Sarah. But the last name is quite wrong. I think that is your district attorney with a different first name
Deputy.
or deputy.
I don't work for the city, so I have
Okay,
no
well,
idea.
so I got rid of the incorrect last name and I'm Sarah.
Sarah.
And yes, and at the risk of sounding like a teacher, but I was a teacher for 30 years and I taught in Fort Jay, I taught in New York. I have one main objective for being here, really, and that is that Eugene needs to be a better place to raise a mentally ill young man. And I came to Eugene in 1955 and I left quite a few times, went different places. Family is here, so I'm back here. And I taught in Fort Jay for 20 years. Eamon also went to South Eugene, and he was a very good runner, very good athlete, a good student, filled out 7 applications for colleges, was accepted to all of them, and ended up getting voices, hallucinations, and had no idea what was going on, and he hid it from us. So we had about 2 or 3 years of him attempting suicides and being, well, just, we called it angst because we didn't have another word for it. We didn't have a diagnosis. And so we are 10 years later now. Our sea legs are on. His dad, Paul, and I are on the HIPAA, we're off the HIPAA, on the HIPAA. And you know, when you have the right to determine who is in your team or on your team, then you get to, you know, you run the risk of being excluded. And when you're excluded, you know, that explains a lot about why there's so many people wandering the streets because they've gotten rid of their support. Well, we have given 10 years to keeping our son safe and safe and healthy and alive, really. And it's been grueling. The city of Eugene has done nothing to help us, absolutely nothing. And I didn't know that in the beginning because I was naive, ignorant about the illness. And I always assumed that somebody would, you know, I don't want to say feel sorry for us, but I wanted to believe that there would be compassion and understanding. So it has been one disappointment after another. And let me just say that this is Eamon. This is Eamon. This is who he is. I used to say he was Ferdinand the Bull. He sat under the cork tree smelling the flowers, and yet he was this phenomenal athlete. He had the diagnosis of schizophrenia about 8 years ago, and he is on SSDI. And since then, we have found a good support with Peace Health and the UCare program. And Eamon has never hit me. He has never attacked me. He has never been violent towards anyone ever. He never did play football. He's never been spanked. He's never been hit. He's a gentle young man. So he knew to never hit us or to be that person. And I'm nervous. And I'll tell you the reason I'm nervous, first of all, is because I am terrified for the what next for me speaking out. Really, you know, we're putting our future, our reputations out there for full disclosure, for you to question, wonder, talk about us. And that's frightening. I must say that's very frightening. So let me just say that on August the 6th, Eamon had been off medication for about 10 days. You know, if he's off medication 10 days, that means I haven't slept. I'm exhausted. And he had been laying on our sofa. This is the sofa right behind me, that big white sofa. He'd been on it for about 10 days. And I was provoking him, Eamon, you know, get up, do something, go somewhere, do something. And and I walked out to the kitchen. And as I walked out to the kitchen, he followed me. And I was walking, his dad, Paul, was in the kitchen. And Eamon held up this small knife and he said, "Get out of my house and leave me alone." So I went out of the house. We had already been calling for Cahoots. We had used Cahoots for 7 years. They knew Eamon. We had never needed police. We had never been there. So I walked out of the house and watched Eamon put the knife down, walk back to the sofa, lay back down, and the dispatcher was asking me what's going on. And me, again, naive, thinking, wow, you know, somebody is going to care about us. They're going to try and offer us support, do something to help us, you know, with this what we're going through right now. And I said, I want Cahoots. He needs to get to the hospital and get back on medication. And Cahoots has helped us with this before, and so on. Well, she said, I need to send the police. And I said, no, you can't send the police. And I was just adamant, you cannot. He's terrified of the police. You must send Cahoots. So I'll speed up a bit.
Okay.
And I was,
You're good.
so the police, next thing I have to just regroup here for a second, because we're still traumatized. It's about 7 months now. And I must say that I just got my sofas back yesterday. I had them removed. I did not want to be reminded. It's been a horrible, just horrible. So the police, well, first of all, we were outside. Paul and I were outside, and the police said, we're here, come out and speak to us. So Paul and I went out to the street, and the police asked us to move down the street. And they questioned us about Eamon. And I said, he's laying on the couch. You know, the little tiny carving knife is on the kitchen counter, and he is back on the sofa. And next thing I know, there's another police car coming, and another car, and another car. And next thing I realized, there's like 7 cars, and they won't let me or Paul near our home. And my son is in there, and he's so psychotic, and he's so ill, and he's so confused. So the police are showing up, then an ambulance, then a fire truck. And my neighbors reported later that there was a police officer standing outside my house with what looked like an assault rifle. This is a home that Eamon lived in for 26 years. Our neighbors, when Cahoots would come to help, I'd send them a text and I'd say, hey, nothing to worry about. Eamon's having some trouble. They're coming to help him. And just to give them a heads up. Well, this time I had to send a text to all the neighbors and say, I have no idea what's going on. This is so scary. And then they reported to me their observations, and their observations were just as frightening with what was going on. So the police, about an hour and a half later, they took Eamon. And when they took him, they had promised me before they took him that they would not hurt him. They said, we will take as long as we need to take. Well, I called his doctor. His doctor came to our house that night. Cahoots stood on the street with us. The doctor stood on the street. His counselor came. She stood on the street. We're all saying, please take him to the hospital. He's ill. And
Sarah, about 1 more minute, please.
And they took him to jail. So we had the auditor, we filed an auditor's report afterwards. And I really did not get to tell you everything because we have experienced the auditor and the review board. The review board, when it was our turn to speak, they did not let us speak. They gave us 60 seconds. So I think I'm flustered tonight because my son was not supposed to be here, and he was here. And he was standing right there listening to me. And that rattled me completely. He was supposed to be out of the house. So I kind of blew it. But we have had one shit experience after another, no support. And on top of everything, Senior and Disabled Services called me and said, you need a restraining order on your son. I said, please hang up, call back and say, we would like to offer support for what you are doing to help you support your son living with you and staying safe. Eamon gave up cigarettes. He hasn't self-medicated. He is trying so hard to be better. And the illness is horrid. It's a horrid, horrid disease. You wouldn't tell a blind man to see. You wouldn't tell a man and a woman in a wheelchair to walk. So why do they tell mentally ill people to listen to them and comply and do what they're saying? I will never understand the disregard to his disability. His arraignment, they didn't care that he didn't understand a word they were saying. They just put him back in the jail. It took us days to get him out of the jail during a pandemic and get him to the hospital. It's been a nightmare. It's still a nightmare. It's still a nightmare because we still don't get help. We don't get help. And now everyone has our story. And Eamon did not assault us. He was not menacing with the knife, and he did not ever hit me. He pushed me when one time he was playing his electric guitar at 3 a.m, and I turned off the amp and he pushed me away. Now, there will be rumors about that Eamon this and that. The only time he ever touched me was to give me a hug. And that's it.
Sarah, thank you so much. We appreciate that. And now we have 5 minutes for questions.
I'm here. Frazzled, but here.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. That, no, your situation is incredibly familiar to me. I can relate to very much of your story, and I appreciate you coming and talking about it.
I just didn't expect my son to be here.
I know you did a really good job.
Well, he was listening to me.
Yep. Yeah. I'm gonna call on Joel Eboa and then Rick.
Oh, hi, Joel.
Looks like Rick's hand's not up anymore, so it'll be Joel and then Brian.
Mrs. Cordelia, it's good to see you. Just for context for folks.
Joel was my student for
yes, Mrs. Cordelia was my teacher in 6th grade, and Eamon and I are the same age. And I remember Eamon quite well as someone who was born and raised and went through the 4J school system. But just first of all, Mrs. Cordelia, thank you so much for coming here and sharing such a painful story with us. I myself have a cousin who's 2 or 3 years younger than I am, who has schizophrenia and has gone through similar situations that you and your family have gone through. I think the only question I have for you, is what would be the one thing that you hope that this body, this ad hoc committee that's supposed to be recommendations on law enforcement, what's the one thing
Thank you for
that you would like for us to do in order to change the way law enforcement engages with folks with mental health issues? And by the way, good to see you, even though it's in these awful circumstances.
Can we please have a wee spot of tea 6 feet apart sometime, please? I'm just,
yeah, let's chat.
I was so frazzled that Eamon was here, so frazzled. So what I would like to see happen, first of all, is if you have police officers who are receiving numerous complaints, you need to fire them. Can you imagine a teacher with numerous complaints of being inappropriate? We sometimes forget that bad behavior is just bad behavior, and call it what it is. If it's a bad decision and a mistake, say you're sorry. If it's a policy that sucks, get rid of it. If you have police officers that really are not compassionate, because I really have quite a few stories about the police officers, and I really did want you to hear the police officer who called me at the end of the night and said, we have him in custody and he's not hurt. So I want, and of course he was hurt. This is Eamon. This is Eamon being dragged out of my house. There was taser wire on the carpet. There was blood on the sofa. They black boot polish all over my white wool carpet. They hurt him, but they really hurt us emotionally. I don't know how to recover from this. So that's one thing I want changed, is get rid of police officers who truly just, they aren't right for the job. The next thing that I would like to see happen is the Civilian Review Board had good insight. There were a couple of them that just, policy. Then there were 5 that truly heard what was going on. And I believe that the Civilian Review Board needs to have more teeth. They need to be able to do something or to investigate, and they need to be able to talk to us the night that they're presenting their findings. To have us sit there and listen, then the next month or 8 weeks or whenever we come back, and then get 60 seconds, that was so dismissive and it was insulting. So we need to be heard, and we need to become a team. Eugene needs to embrace the mentally ill And they need to have a separate call line. When I called for Cahoots and was adamant, I did not want the police. Again, like Aisha said, absolutely, the family knows. Eamon is, and I spent too much time talking about how he's not needing police to jump him. He asked to put on his shoes. He bent over to put on his shoes, and 7 officers, according to the cameras, jumped him. And Eamon just today, is traumatized still. Why did I let people come in our home and hurt him? What would you say to him? You're all sitting there. If he was your son, what would you say to him? How do I explain why they came in our home and jumped him and took him out?
Got about 1 more minute for the questions.
I have my hand raised, but I'm gonna wait because
Sanders never asked a question. Can she ask a question?
Hey guys, I'm facilitating, so I'll be in charge of calling on votes. I am gonna call on Sandra. Go ahead, Sandra.
I don't see Sandra. Oh.
Thank you, Mo. Sarah, I know how traumatizing that was. I appreciate your input, and I know it's difficult. It makes me want to cry.
Me too.
When my kids were 14 and 15, they were partying in the woods up to Mischief by teenagers do. They were relaxed, they were laughing, sitting in a circle. Cops snuck up on them and they pulled guns on them. I know trauma as a parent. And we hear you. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
that-
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna move us on to Stephanie Babb. So Sarah, you are welcome to stay. If
Oh,
you
I'll
feel like-
listen, of course.
Okay.
And thank you for allowing us to present. Please, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you
Oh,
sharing.
I forgot. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Cops being able to transfer from one unit to another to escape their violent histories as police officers on the clock should not be able to do so. I'm a firm believer in that.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Thank you, Sandra. Stephanie, you're up.
Hi, thanks. You know, as
Stephanie, I could hear you and now I can't hear you.
unmute. Is that
There you
okay? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. So like I said, I have a phone like you, Mom, and I'm having to hold it up to my charger so I can have my earplugs in at the same time. Let me just catch myself a little bit because I was a little irritated. I forgotten about this until a half an hour before. And I've been dealing with my mom in the hospital because she gets panic attacks from the PTSD. And if my phone's shaking, it's because I'm shaking and I'm holding it. Since my brother's death. So you want to know about Eugene? I don't believe in Eugene. I don't believe in Eugene. Aisha, Eric Richardson, Eric came and spoke at a rally after my brother was killed, the Wayne Morris Free Speech Center. All right, got a lot to cover. I'll do this. All right. I do a worldwide podcast. I'm now a project director for pulling together women, mothers from across the entire nation to come and do a video shoot that will premiere on Bet Channel in front of 60 million people on Mother's Day. who have all lost a child to police brutality, violence, murder. Not only that, and the bigger part of that is it's going to Kamala Harris for the George Floyd Police Justice and Police Act. Sorry. I'm friends with his uncle. He'll be there too. So Eugene, I've given up on Eugene because they don't give a shit, right? My family has been here before Oregon was a state. My great-grandfather is in the Pioneer Museum, and he was a judge in this city, and he was the first person to ever teach a term of school. So when my middle-aged white brother, a veteran, a captain on 130% disability for PTSD and TBI, called his VA therapist, she called police for a well check call, and they showed up. And because he was a veteran, and I have this recorded, I have it recorded from Alex Gardner. Because he was a veteran, they brought in SWAT, and they put snipers on his neighbors' roofs, and they brought in a Bearcat, an armored vehicle, and they hailed him over a loudspeaker. And he came to the door 4 times. His roommate came out, who was also a veteran. They woke him up from a nap. 4th time my brother came out from 70 feet away, Will Stutzman, Officer Will Stutzman, who had just been trained in SWAT, was on his way home. It's like 5 p.m, Monday, March 30th, 2015. Decided that this would be a good opportunity for him to get field experience. So behind a 2.5-foot steel turret lid, with a high-powered rifle, he shot my brother. My brother had more training, more presence of mind, more integrity than the police do. So I came up with my mom and I, actually, my mom's an RN. I worked for Center for Family Development. I went through all the training, the DA's Victims and Witness Advocacy Program. I worked for DYS, like Aisha, I get it. My nephew's schizophrenic. I mean, look at Stacey Kenny, Patrick Kenny, what happened to him, her. I'm going to lose my train of thought. I don't even care right now. I just listening to Aisha, and I've listened to that 911 call so many times because it's so harrowing and so hurtful. And in everything she said, it's so true. So I want to make clear when I talk about my family having been here and my brother being a white guy and everything else, like being shot by police, Black Lives Matter. That's the primary issue. We wouldn't have police if we didn't have people that were hired to chase slaves. So police brutality is a secondary issue, but it affects all of us. So if I can stand in front of other white people and say, you're at risk too, this can happen to you, get off your fucking asses and vote, you're damn well right I'm going to, because that's what needs to happen. Because if my brother can be shot 45 minutes after a well check call was made to police, minorities are walking around with targets on their back. I feel like my brother's death, he's military, all they see is green. Eugeni's 98.6% white as of the last census. Our idea of diversity are hippies, I get it. I mean, if we don't unite, if we are not inclusive, we are not going to be heard. And we need I quit dealing with Eugene completely. I go up to Portland with Pacific Northwest Family Circle. I deal with my groups across the nation. I vet cases. I'm the first person who sees the body cam videos of people getting shot to see if they could get counsel, legal counsel. That's what I do. That's what I do. So all these people behind me, they're just a small example of the people who've been killed, not hurt, not tased, not roughed up, killed. Cahoots is in cahoots with police. Okay, let's be really fucking clear about that. All right, I love, don't get me wrong, those people that work for Cahoots are, I have nothing but great respect and honor for them. But I also know that when my brother's case won summary judgment and it came out on the headlines for in the Eugene Register Guard, that EPD did this big propaganda thing about how they're working with Cahoots and now they're going to go to Denver and all this stuff, right? Well, Brian's bill, what I had originally worked on was a separate entity of people being able to deal with people in emotional distress. And originally I had just talked about with veterans that it would come out of the VA's office because Obama had given them money, everything else. And they would, and here's the thing, they would be able to handle somebody who had a gun, because that's the excuse that police across our nation use, is if they have a weapon. Okay, so you're talking about young Black men with a cell phone, or Moose Hayes on his knees with his hands up in Portland that didn't have a weapon, or Clark County in Washington had a pellet gun. Who got shot?
Stephanie,
Young.
excuse me, couple more minutes.
Okay, gotcha. You get what I'm saying, you guys. So Cahoots, there are programs that work. Look up the Memphis model. Okay, you have people who are volunteering, police officers who are volunteering for mental health training, and they deal. But you know what? They lost revenue because it worked. They lost a lot of revenue, but the program works. Okay. Brian's bill, like I said, I worked with Wyden's and Merkley's office. I had to set it down to focus on my brother's case, which was tried in February a year ago, and then COVID hit, and then George Floyd was killed. Don't stop me. I swear to God, if anybody interrupts me right now, I don't want to be here. All right. So just deal.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I don't even know where I was at. Okay, my brother's case, you know, was lost. Merkley and Wyden, I was working on Brian's bill, a separate, you know, with its own phone number. It's completely taken away from the department. 988, checked with the FCC. I went all the way with this thing. I had to set it aside to focus on my brother's trial. The second day into my brother's trial, Wyden and Merkley released the suicide hotline with 988. They didn't mention my brother, and I would never call it a suicide hotline, because that's not what this is. It's about emotional distress, and it's about people being able to respond like the people from Cahoots. They don't have the infrastructure to deal with that kind of thing. They could, if they had the right support, if they could deputize one of the people that are on their team who have the training, the de-escalation, the training, they can decide, take it out of police's hands. They don't need it. They don't know what to do with it. They're being trained by retired psych professor from West Point, Lieutenant Dave Grossman, on killology. All right, look that up. Seriously, look it up. He's the #1 trainer of police in America today. And he teaches them not to hesitate. He teaches them to pull the trigger first. That's
Stephanie,
called killology.
If we
Okay,
could move
yeah.
into the question session, that would be great. Thank you so much.
So I've got, I'm gonna call on Abdul Rahman and Daniel. Sorry, Ibrahim. So Abdul Rahman, you're first.
So am I out completely, or maybe?
I just said we only have time for 2, and you've already been able to ask questions to our speakers, and These folks have not.
Well, I want to put this question to the last speaker as well as the two previous ones about their experiences. They suffered the consequences of something that dominates the United States of America. The country entirely, the civil population of the country is armed. We have arms in the streets. We have armed cabinets in every house, almost every house. We have multiple types of guns in every property. Therefore, when you call the police for an incident, we have a scared police to be in a situation facing guns. So we had to arm the police. And I'm asking you as victims of these weapons and arms everywhere, would you recommend a motion to disarm America? Consequently, you will disarm the police. Hence, we can look down at a lesser level of violence and fear of death because of all these arms. I lived in
Well,
Britain.
first of all, it's not constitutional. It won't happen.
Well,
you take away arms from people who have them legally, and then you'll have people who have them illegally.
Well, we'll face a different problem. We can work on that when it happens. But at least instead of 300 and almost 50 million people armed, and then the police.
This is a different subject. We're talking about police brutality, not just brutality, but like police killing. So they have guns. I don't give a shit who else has guns. Police have guns, and they get to use them with impunity because of qualified immunity.
Well,
Are we clear?
We have to have control somewhere. We have somebody to take the initiative.
Right. So why don't we control the people that we can, the people that we
Stephanie?
pay to take care of us?
Stephanie, I just need you to let him ask his question, and then you can answer.
It's not topical, but go ahead.
Would you recommend, if there is a move to disarm America, would you be a supporter of the move? And this is my question. I lived in Britain, by the way. I lived for over 30 years, where the public are not armed. And the police wasn't armed. We used to know the police officers on the beat. They walk around the streets every morning and every evening. We know them by name. They know us by names. We used to talk and chat to them, offer them teas and coffees. Why doesn't
We've got a couple more minutes left in the question session.
Okay, I asked my question. It is done everywhere and done in other places, and it's not impossible to be enforced here in the United States of America. It's just if there is a call for the motion to disarm America, would there be a support for that move? That was my question. Thank you.
I think
I want to say something here because
Ibrahim, I can't. It's Daniel's turn. I'm sorry. I'm trying real hard to get this done at 8 o'clock.
thank you.
Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Stephanie. Can you speak briefly, I guess, as to how the system, which is supposed to oversee the police and hold them accountable, failed? And do you have any ideas on what could be done to hold the police more accountable for excessive use of force and wrongful death?
We've got 30 seconds, folks.
Is that an open question?
Yes.
Okay, so there are things. Aisha touched on them a little bit. I believe that there should be automatic drug tests. I think that they need to be interviewed immediately, not given 3 days paid vacation. I think that the first time they exhibit any kind of excessive use of force, they need to be on the desk for 6 months. If they kill anybody, they need to be permanently on the desk. I'm not saying they have to be gone. They get to do desk work, lose their pensions. We can't do anything. The families are not victims in the eyes of the law. We are criminalized by our system. We aren't allowed compensation. We aren't given court liaisons. We are not given respect or anything as family members to people who are brutalized by police and get away with it. Judd Warden, look at his fucking record. I mean, think about it. 2 years and they get to erase their records. I think I've said enough. I know you guys are gonna just nail me and dump me anyway, so whatever.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. We've reached the end of the question period.
Thank you, everybody. That was a lot. I just want to express appreciation again for y'all coming and talking to this group and talking to the folks that will hear this out in the community. And I really hope that we get to use this to move the work forward. Like I said, to move the work more towards justice. I see that Marty and Erica both have their hands up. If you all can be very quick, I'm going to call on Marty and then Erica.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that in the same vein that we've invited Aisha to email us her recommendations, that we open that up to the other participants as well. I know that Stephanie's done years of work and probably has some good recommendations to offer us.
Yeah, thank you. Erica?
I just wanted to voice my disappointment in the way this is being handled. I just feel that people are not being valued, are not respected, or appreciated, even though they are doing a very hard job, not just coming to speak, but they have been coming to open their wounds for ignorant people to hopefully learn from there for free. Kind of bothers me. Also, I wanted to tell you that calling people to ask for these testimonies and then give them very short time, just like for me, there is obviously an inequality or airtime, because when we have to meet these people that represent the police or represent these forces, we are sent videos, we have all this material, and they come and talk for us, most of the time. But when the other side is come to the table, they are not expressed. They are already in a lot of stress, they are a lot of trauma, and they are really doing something for free, hopefully to be listened, because they have seen a reality that we are not immune to. And also, I wanted to say that I feel that to do this work, people should be invited and should be given information in advance, so they have time. And I just feel the way I'm very disappointed. I'm frustrated. I'm feeling this process very tokenizing, and I'm really getting tired of it. So I'm really hoping the people who are listening, and especially the people who are in charge, I really want you to call attention that if you're not allowing us to do this job in the way it is, if we are I don't know who you are, and you are telling us and trying to manipulate and move things from here in the scheduling, in the timer, in all these things, I just want you to tell you that you're stealing from us. You're stealing your time. You're stealing our energy. You're stealing the time that we could be with our families. So I really want you to And I'm talking specifically of how was handled, because there is people from communities that has been marginalized, historically marginalized, and that didn't have the opportunity to be here because the way it was handled, it was very tokenizing, and they chose not to be here. And I just want you to tell you that I'm really, really tired, and I really hope that the people that are listening change their attitude and stop getting in the middle of the work. And if we're going to maybe opening another space for having other people to come and talk, because in all the cases we have seen different situations. And also, I just want to show my solidarity to the people that have to rip their wounds open, because I know you're going to have a very difficult evening. And then I just want to thank you for this moment, and thank you for giving us this, in certain way, this opportunity to heal and to see the truth, listen the truth, speak the truth, and hopefully with all of this, we can do something that is. Thank you.
Erica, just let me comment. Thank you for your comments. I'm the lead staff on this. I am happy to listen to you at any time. So I will look forward to that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I see people are raising their hands, and I'm not sure what to do. I know we're supposed to move to like.
To what? To what? To something that you guys decided to put in the agenda at the last minute. Please give us the chance to be in this testimony session as we plan.
That's fine, Patricia. We are trying to facilitate the will of this committee. And if this committee would like to use the rest of the time for discussion and questions, that's certainly up to you.
At least to thank the testimoniers.
Okay, that's I'm having a hard time because I'm doing this on top of my job. I'm trying really hard to hold space for everyone, and I don't particularly feel like getting yelled at right now. So I'm gonna call on Ibrahim, and then I'm gonna call on Patricia.
Thank you, Mo, and I really appreciate all what you do. Kevin, can you hear me?
I can, Ibrahim, yeah. But if you were to scoot closer, I think everyone could hear you even better.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. And I want to thank all of you for putting this together. And I want to thank Eric. I want to thank Alicia and Marian Dugo and Stephanie Babb for coming here on the request of Eugene Springfield NAACP to share their experience. But what I want this body to know is it is not easy to go back to your trauma, to dig in and share with people who, to be honest, some of them do not care about what you're about to talk about. Some of us here don't. Some of us here in this committee do not care about what Aisha, what Eric, what Stephanie Babb have been through. We don't care. Some of us don't care. But what I'm seeing here is the majority of us see like this is something we should learn more about. We should cherish the experience and see how we can improve the system. And yes, I'm the president of NAACP. Eugene, Springfield, Lynn County, whatever you want to take it from Salem or Corvallis all the way to California border. the only NAACP and the only thing you're gonna see is me. So how can we help these people? How can you, as being a member of this committee, can make changes in the community to pass whatever thing you have against what minorities community? How can you improve the system? Brian Michael and Brian Michaels is part of this subcommittee. He's a lawyer in Eugene. I'm the president of NAACP. We have been aware that some people do not want to see us here. They push back, they say stupid things, they send emails, they do whatever they can for people to have a different perception of who we are. But what I want to tell you is, it's not about me, it's not about Brian, it's not about Daniel Burson, it's not about Eve Soraya, it's about you. What do you want to see in this community as, you know, as a change for the criminal justice and the police here? What do you want to see?
Ibrahim, 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much, Naya. And I want to tell you this. Don't think about me. Don't think about Brian. Don't think about people who are sending emails around. We are one of those people. But think about you. What's your job? What can you do to change things in this community for people from the minorities community? You have heard from Aisha. You have heard from Eric. You have heard from Stephanie Babs. Her brother was killed by Eugene police. The bullet was on the wall days after Eugene police moved out. No reason. The bullet was
And your
there.
time is, Ibrahim, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we've got to move on.
Okay, I'm gonna move on now.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell you.
No, you have to, we have to call on someone else, Ibrahim.
Consider.
Thank you.
Patricia.
Thank you. I want to ask a question for Stephanie Bab. That could be very nice if you can talk to us again. I would like Stephanie to tell us what is exactly that is your biggest frustration when you try to go to the agencies that the Eugene the city has created to complain about police brutality?
That's a really, really good question. First of all, like I said, we didn't get any information first. It just happened that I was talking to Pete Kearns, the chief of police at the time, Alex Gardner's office, and Mark Gissner, the police auditor, almost on a daily basis, trying to find out information, getting toxicology reports, autopsy reports, the IDFIT, which is the Internal Deadly Force Investigative Team report. And all that was going to be released to media first, which is what initially happens for the most part, and has happened to families all over. I think because I kept taking it to the media and we kept having rallies, the Wayne Morris Free Speech Center, that the Civilian Review Board actually did review, because initially they said they don't review police shootings. CRB doesn't do that. And as far as I know, and not only in the state of Oregon, but any other Civilian Review Board does not review Portland. They don't review police shootings. But the bottom line is they came up with an 11-point power presentation of suggestions. Yeah, well, we all know who's been killed in the last 5 years, so we know how well that works. Doesn't. So I'm a primary author of the priority legislation and advocacy for families, Pacific Northwest Family Circle. It is going to go national. I've been working on the
30 seconds, please,
Joanne
Stephanie.
Hardesty 26.217. So look those things up. I've got them, and they the qualified immunity, that kind of thing. Just being accountable, man. I mean, it's common sense. Doesn't take a lot. Wouldn't even cost us money.
Is that state legislation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I see Silver.
Thank you. So I want to thank Patricia for speaking up, and Erica, I really want to tell you thank you very much for speaking to a lot of the issues that some of us have had in conversation about the ad hoc committee, specifically regarding tokenizing and the work that we had and felt was going to be done with this committee, and the work that we feel is not being done. And I know that I can speak for myself and say that I expected more from this process, and I'm pretty. You all saw my conversation last time. If you weren't a part of the conversation the last time, please watch the tape. I was very agitated with the process and the way that we're moving forward. As a person who's on the police commission and now being told that these suggestions are going to go through city council and then again through a process of going through the police commission, it's upsetting for me to not see this as a thing where we're going to actually put forward real policies that I think could impact the way that the Eugene Police Department is dealing with people in the city, specifically Black, Indigenous people of color, and the way that those policies can be implemented to make sure that we have a safer and more welcoming interactions as BIPOC people in the city.
Thank you, Silver. Let's see. Ibrahim, if you can make it quick, you're welcome to say more.
And just a time check, folks, and I hate to be the timekeeper, but that's part of the deal. We're at 8 o'clock, technically at the end of our meeting.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mo, for acknowledging me, and thank you, Silver. You know, this is a thing. And NACP is not about single experiences. It's not about people experiencing discrimination. It is about making changes for the overall community. How can we make the changes for everyone who will come after you? And my perception in this thing is we have heard so many people here tonight. Eric, Aisha, Marian, Stephanie, and the lady, because she was not on my calendar, about how the experience with calling Cahoots or 911 has been traumatic for the family.
Brother President.
I want you to think about one thing, Eric, before I let you speak. I want you to think about one experience. Brian Michaels was here in this subcommittee because I want to talk about that, because we have here a lot of stories about Brian and I. Brent has been doing, assisting people of color in this community for more than 20 years for free. He has been doing that. He has been volunteering his time, his staff time to help people of color to stand against discrimination. But here we are. Here we are. We know a lot of people who claim to be working.
30 seconds.
30 seconds, Naya. We claim to be working in this community to address these injustices. But here's the thing.
Ibrahim, we got to wrap this up.
I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you for listening to me, and I can talk for like 24 more hours. I'm gonna let Eric.
We got 10 seconds. Brother, thank you very much. I invite you all to come to the Freedom Fund dinner on Friday night. Check it out on Eventbrite. But I just want you to say thank you all for doing this. This is important work. We want our systems to work properly. We want professionalism. We want empathy in our professionals. We are paying tax dollars for this to work. Thank you all for your work that you do for us. And this is very important. And we care about our children. We care about our mothers. We care about the people who have spoke today and their brothers. And so let's do this together as a community in 2021, in the middle of a pandemic. Let's get it right. Thank you very much. I'm out, and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Eric. On that note, we will talk about these recommendations next time. I appreciate everyone for being here today, for speaking your truth, for telling your story. None of that is easy, and you are appreciated.
Well, we have received a video about Scott McKee money, talking about his experience as an internal affair investigator. And my hope is you guys will all watch that video. If you haven't received it, send an email to Mo Yang and she's gonna forward you the video. My hope is you guys are gonna watch it, and we will probably have a time to ask questions to Scott McKee before this whole ad hoc committee go to sleep or at least go to not being active.
All right, thank you. And you should all have that on your inbox. I want you all to have as good a night as you possibly can. Take good care of yourself, whatever that looks like for you tonight. And we will onward.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much.
Adjourned.